Welcome to Miss Taylor's videos for Algebra 1. Today we're going to talk about literal equations. So if we look at these two problems here, and we want to label terms, coefficients, and constants. So let's start with terms. So all terms are separated by a plus minus sign or by an equal sign. So one term is y, another term is mx, and the other term is b. Same thing on this one. Z is a term, 3x is a term, and 45y is a term. So for coefficients, we're looking for numbers in front of letters. On our left side, we only have variables. There are no numbers. So our coefficients are on the other side are going to be 3 and 45. And then all that we're left with are variables. We actually don't have any constants in these problems. So the reason I show you this is because when we do literal equations have two or more variables. And when we talk about literal equations, we cannot solve them. We can only rearrange. There we go. So let's look at some examples. This top row of examples are examples you're going to see in algebra class. So we're going to be doing lots. Algebra. I can't spell this morning. Sorry, guys. These are going to be the things that we look for. We have y and x in the problem, and it wants us to either solve for x or solve for y. So what I'm immediately going to do is I'm going to highlight the letter that it wants me to solve for. Then I'm going to draw my line down my equal sign. So I'm looking at 5x minus 6. My minus 6 is what is furthest away from my x, and it's also a separate term, so I'm going to do the opposite to move it to the other side. That part's easy. What we struggle with is this next part, is our 6 does not have a y. Our 6 is a constant, our y is a variable, so we cannot combine those two. So what we have to do is we have to put y plus 6. And then we can bring down the 5x. I'm going to highlight the x one more time because I need the x to be by itself. So anytime I have a number next to a letter, I'm going to divide. So my 5's cancel. And so my final answer is going to be x equals y plus 6 divided by 5. Now later in the year, we're going to simplify that even further. But for right now, that's as far as I want us to go. So here we're going to solve for y. I'm going to highlight my y, draw my line down my equal sign. So I have my one term, which is 3y, and then I have my other term, which is 2x. And because these are separate terms, it's going to allow me to move an entire term, or the 2x, over to the other side. I just have to do the opposite. I'm going to bring my 3y down. And again, this is the hard part. The 8 does not have an x, and because the 8 does not have an x, we cannot combine them. So I'm going to write minus 2x plus 8. You can really write those in either order. I just like to have the x term first because in algebra, we usually put our variables first and our constants last. So now we need to get the y by itself by moving the 3, and we move the 3 by dividing. So our final answer is going to be y equals negative 2x plus 8 all over negative 3. And again, later on, we're going to simplify that further, but for now, that's all I want us to be able to do. All right, I want you to try this one on your own and check it with the completed notes. All right, these problems here are all going to be from geometry. So when you get to geometry next year, you're going to be expected to be able to do solving literal equations so that you know how to rearrange formulas and find missing parts of formulas. So here it wants us to solve for W. Now, normally when we see this problem, we would distribute and multiply that 2 on both sides. However, we can skip that step and do the opposite. The opposite of multiplication is simply division. You're going to get the same answer even if you multiply that 2 through. This just makes it a little bit simpler. So we're going to cancel out our 2's. A divided by 2 equals L plus W. And whenever we get rid of that 2 in front of the parentheses, we also get rid of the parentheses. And so we want to move the L. And so what I know is I know that the L is adding to the W, so I'm going to subtract L from both sides. So those cancel, and I bring down my W. I'm going to bring down the A divided by 2, and then I'm going to put the minus L next to it. And so that is our area divided by 2 minus the length equals the width. All right, so here we've got our area of a triangle problem. I'm actually going to change up this problem because when I teach this in geometry, I change the formula. I change it to area equals base times height divided by 2. They mean the same thing and they do the same thing. It's just a little bit easier for us to understand this and to break this down from here. So it wants us to solve for B. So we need to draw that line down our equal sign. So the H is right next to the B, so I can't get rid of it first. I need to get rid of this 2, which is being divided. So the opposite of division is multiply. Oh, it should just be a 2. Sorry, guys. It's really early in the morning. So I'm going to multiply that side by 2. My 2's cancel. I'm left with 2A equals B times H. Again, I'm going to highlight that B, and I'm going to do the opposite. So the B and the H, when two letters are next to each other, means multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is divide, and so we divide both sides by H. My H's cancel, and 2A, or 2 times the area, divided by the height of the triangle, equals the base. Our final one, and actually this one is the easiest one of them all. If we want to solve for H, anytime we see 3 letters or letters next to each other or symbols next to each other, they all mean multiply. So the opposite of multiply is simply divide. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. My L and my W cancel, and I'm left with volume divided by length times width equals the height. And that's all we do for literal equations.